Murders in 2014 in St. Louis. 11 police officers have been involved in shootings in St. Louis in the year. 120 crimes, 11 police shootings. All too many numbers. And then this weekend, me being a long-suffering Rams fan and a long-suffering Jets fan, as you can imagine, I heard or peeked up with some interest that a gentleman named Percy Harvin was traded from the Seahawks to my New York Jets. So I was like, oh, wow, what's this going to do with for the Jets going forward? And then there was a story out of the New York press that Percy Harvin, there have been many racially insensitive things that have been said in this Russell Wilson story. In this Mike Brown story and the Von Der Myers. A lot of clearly racially insensitive things whites saying about blacks, clearly. And there are many racially insensitive things that blacks have said about whites, and whites have said about whites, and blacks have said about blacks, and so on and so forth. Right? There's a lot of, it's a lot going around. And that's why I think racially insensitive is a much better term, because I think people, they're not saying it correctly. They're saying it and they're creating more controversy by what they say, but that's not what they really mean. Because it is a sensitive subject, and you do have to choose your words carefully. So this Percy Harvin story comes out, and he's quoted as saying that Russell Wilson, the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, who happens to be African-American, he said, he's quoted in news reports saying, hey, the problem with the Seahawks is that some teammates don't like Russell Wilson. They don't think he's black enough. Oh, boy. He doesn't think he's black enough. Russell Wilson was quoted as saying, I don't even know what that means. I'm just an educated, well-spoken male. Bravo to Russell Wilson. Well, recently, since this story came out last week, Charles Barkley was in an interview show. Charles Barkley, never one to shy away from controversy, was asked, hey, what do you think of this story coming out of Seattle that Russell Wilson isn't black enough? He was asked that question by Anthony Gargano and Rob Ellis on a radio talk show. Here's what Charles Barkley said about that.
Did you see the Mike Freeman story about Russell Wilson?
I heard that. I heard about it.
For those people listening, Mike Freeman wrote a piece about Russell Wilson where he quoted unnamed players saying he wasn't black enough, that he was too much of a company guy and that sort of thing. Now, Mike disagreed with the statement, but some of the players said that. Is that the same case where, why would you hate Russell Wilson?
Well, unfortunately, as I tell my white friends, we as black people, we're never going to be successful, not because of you white people, because of other black people. When you're black, you have to deal with so much crap in your life from other black people. It's a dirty, dark secret. I'm glad it's coming out. It comes out every few years. I wrote a big chapter in my book about it, to be honest with you. I said, when young black kids, when they do well in school, the loser kids tell them, oh, you're acting white. The kids who speak intelligently,
right?
They tell them you're acting white. So it's a dirty, dark secret in the black community. One of the reasons we're never going to be successful as a whole because of other black people. And for some reason, we are brainwashed to think if you're not a thug or an idiot, you're not black enough. If you go to school, make good grades, speak intelligent, and don't break the law, you're not a good black person. And it's a dirty, dark secret, Anthony. I heard Stephen A. talking about it. Listen, I hate to bring white people into our crap, but as a black person, we all go through it when you're successful. It's like one of the reasons a lot of black players go broke is because when you're successful, your friends say to you, oh, you ain't cool, you ain't down with us anymore. And you end up giving up all your money to these damn losers, and you end up broke again.
Yeah.
But it's a dirty, dark secret in the black community that a lot of black people who are unintelligent, who don't have a success, it's best to knock a successful black person down because they're intelligent, they speak well, they do well in school, and they're successful. and they don't. I mean, think about it.
Well, it's crabs in a barrel, right?
It's crabs in a barrel. And it's the thing that's funny. We're the only race that tell people if you don't have street cred, which that means you've been arrested.
Right.
Like that's a compliment. We're the only ethnic group who say, hey, if you go to jail, it gives you street cred. It's just typical BS that goes on when you're black, man. Don't waste a lot of time on it, please, because it's just so. Russell Wilson has it. I don't know Russell Wilson. I met him and said hello, but just because he studies the playbook all the time, he doesn't go out clubbing and things like that. I guess some of the other players, you see what happened with Percy Harvin. I guess they didn't like the way they wanted him to do crazy stuff, and he didn't want to do it.
That, Charles Barkley, from an interview late last week, to put it into what's going on here in St. Louis. When you have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old shot by a drive-by shooting, when you have a brother and a sister who was subsequently murdered 2 hours from each other, when you have 3 people killed before the sun goes down on a Tuesday, when you have a 14-year-old girl blind because of a drive-by shooting in which they missed the uncle and they got the uncle 3 days later, what's going on in Ferguson is tragic. And we'll find out the facts, and we'll figure it out. But there's a larger story going on. And yeah, police brutality is one portion of it. But what about the systematic, what about the total destruction of human life that is going on? Where are the African-American community leaders talking about the entire problem? Because you can't solve it by making all the cops take away all their guns and force them never to shoot another black man ever again. That's not going to solve the problem. So we better come together. And the protesters, you think you're doing a good job shouting down the rest of us. All you're doing is propagating and continuing the cycle of violence. Because if we don't come together and talk about all forms of discrimination, all forms of racially insensitive things that are being said and are being done to our culture, we're never going to solve this problem. 952, Big 550 KTRS.